Hey everyone, in our last set of lecture notes, we talked about Socratic seminar. And in those notes, I told you that you will be writing and answering evaluative questions. So in this set of notes, I'm going to be talking to you about the different types of questions, but we'll focus mainly on evaluative questions. So our first slide here shows the 3 different levels of questions that you could potentially ask in a discussion. Level 1 is recall or fact questions. Level 2 is interpretive questions. And level 3 is evaluative questions. And we'll talk about each one of those levels next. So our first level is recall or fact questions. These are kind of like our sad face questions because there's really only one right answer that's found right in the text. These questions are good to test our comprehension of the text, but they don't really allow us to discuss it because as soon as one person answers the question with the one right answer, that's all the group can do. So again, there's one right answer that's found directly in the text, and because of this, there's not really much for people to discuss after this type of question has been answered. This would also be called a closed question because, again, there's only one right answer. An example of this would be, how old was Katniss when she joined the Hunger Games? To answer that question, you would just need to find the right answer in the text, and then you'd be good to go. Again, there's not really a lot for us to discuss when we answer recall questions. The next level is interpretive questions. Now, with this type of question, there's going to be more than one possible answer that's based on the text. Now, this type of question is slightly better for discussion than recall questions because multiple people could share their interpretations of the text. Now, an example of this would be, why do you think Katniss volunteered as tribute? If you've read The Hunger Games, you know that there's multiple reasons why Katniss did that. So again, this type of question is just slightly better than a recall question. Our level 3 question is our big smiley face question. This is our evaluative questions. Now, the answer to these types of questions is based on the participant's values or choice of actions in a similar situation. So this is a fancy way of saying that this type of questions requires the participant to actually put themselves in the character's shoes. An example of this would be, if you were Katniss, would you have volunteered as tribute? Why or why not? Again, this type of question requires the participants to actually state what they would do if they were in a similar situation. I want to highlight this word, these words, why or why not. Without these words, this question is just like a yes or no question. To actually get the participants to explain their perspectives, it's important to state why or why not. Now, there are 3 types of evaluative questions that we'll talk about on the next few slides. We'll talk about text to self, text to world, and text to text evaluative questions. So the first type of evaluative question is text to self. These questions ask you to make connections between the text that you're reading and your own personal experiences. So it might sound something like, if you were the character's name, what would you have done in that situation? Why? Again, it's making comparison between the story you're reading and what you would do in your own personal life. The next type of evaluative question is text to world. And these questions ask you to make connections between the text and what is happening in the world around us. So this might sound something like, how are the detective strategies in The Christopher Killer similar to real-life detective strategies? How are they different? Again, it's making connections between what's happening in the text and the real world around us. We also have evaluative text-to-text questions. The text obviously is another book, a TV show, a movie, a short story, or anything that we've read or seen before. So now these types of questions ask us to make connections between the things that we're currently reading and other things that we've read in the past. This might sound something like, Reading about the autopsy that Dr. Moore performed made me wonder about shows like CSI. Did you think that the description of the autopsy was realistic or not? Why? So now we have talked about the different types of questions that you could ask. In the next 2 slides, I have 10 example questions. I want you to quiz yourself. Are these questions considered recall, interpretive, or evaluative? Question 1. What do the china figures represent in this story? Even though you might not know what story I'm talking about, you can probably still identify which type of question it is. Number 2, which guest does not talk about the gramophone recording? Number 3, who helps Mrs. Rogers when she faints? Number 4, why does Emily Brent refuse to talk about the gramophone recording? Number 5, would you have accepted the invitation to the island? So again, you're not quizzing yourself to answer these questions. Instead, you're working to quiz yourself to identify the type of question. Let's look at the next 5. Number 6, why do you think the main character lied about her mother being dead? 7, what does Dr. Moore smell when he performs the autopsy? 8, why do you think Adam behaves the way he does in chapter 10? 9, what color, letter, and number did Dr. Jules say Rachel was trying to show them in the reading? And number 10, if you were Cameron, would you trust Adam? So again, you're not working to answer these questions, you're working to identify the type of question. Once you have written down your responses, check your work. The answers. Number 1 is interpretive. Number 2 and 3 are recall. Number 4 is interpretive. Number 5 is an evaluative question, but it's missing that important why. Number 6 is interpretive. 7 is recall. 8 is interpretive. 9 is recall. And 10 is evaluative, but it's missing that important component why. If you have any questions about the things that we talked about in these lecture notes, please don't hesitate to reach out. Okay, thanks for watching, everyone.